15 years. That's how long it took me to realize the woman I married was a complete stranger. I thought I knew love. I thought I knew trust. But sometimes, what looks beautiful on the outside hides an ugly, venomous truth inside. Looking back now, the blinding clarity hits me like a fist. I can see every subtle sign, every flashing warning. Back then, I was utterly blind. Perhaps that crushing naivety was my biggest, most devastating mistake. If you've ever felt your world shatter into a million pieces, if you've felt the ground vanish beneath your feet, then you understand just a fraction of the raw agony I endured. This isn't just my story, it's a searing warning. It's a chilling exposé of how effortlessly trust can be annihilated, how a glorious dream can warp into a living nightmare. If anything I say here strikes a chord, if my words pierce your own experience, please hit that subscribe button immediately and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your connection, your shared experience, means everything. 50, a number that felt less like an age and more like a final chance. I was at a precipice, desperate for a new chapter, a different kind of freedom. Chicago's relentless, bone-chilling winters had become more than just weather. They were a prison, a suffocating gray blanket over my soul. The endless grinding rat race, a career that had once defined my very existence, now felt like a soul-crushing battle, leaving me hollowed out. I'd always dreamed of perpetual sunshine, of days that stretched out lazily, of a rhythm of life that was slower, smiles that were warmer, genuine. Florida, specifically the pulsating, sun-drenched heart of Miami, screamed my name. It was a siren song, loud and insistent, utterly impossible to ignore. I devoured glossy brochures, scrolled through endless online galleries of turquoise waters and swaying palms, and clung to every anecdote from friends who'd already made the exhilarating leap. It looked like paradise incarnate. So, with my secure pension providing a steady, comfortable income and a hefty nest egg from the profitable, cathartic sale of my beloved Midwest home, I cut all ties. I packed everything, severed the past, and bolted south. The U-Haul wasn't just carrying boxes, it carried every desperate hope for a brand new, idyllic life. My first few weeks, a dizzying, intoxicating blur of pure discovery. I woke to the relentless, glorious warmth of the Florida sun blasting through my apartment windows, a shocking, visceral contrast to the perpetual gray I'd abandoned. My days were a delicious mosaic of endless exploration. I plunged into the bustling, aromatic chaos of local markets, the air thick with the pungent sweetness of tropical fruits, the earthy spice of Cuban coffee. I cruised, windows down, along the iconic Ocean Drive, soaking in the flamboyant Art Deco architecture, the pulsing energy, the cacophony of languages. Evenings found me by the vast, murmuring Atlantic, listening to the hypnotic, rhythmic sigh of waves kissing the shore. The sea, salty breeze, the boundless blue sky. It was a sensory overload, everything I'd craved. But beneath the surface, a persistent, quiet ache remained, a nagging feeling of incompleteness. I was free, yes, utterly liberated, but I was also undeniably, profoundly alone. The evenings, especially, amplified that stark solitude, echoing in the quiet of my apartment. Then, one humid Miami night, a night like any other, I found myself drawn to a small, unassuming bar, tucked away on a nondescript side street near the vibrant, historic Little Havana. This wasn't a glitzy South Beach hotspot. This place had soul, character, etched into its worn floors. A few scuffed bar stools, some rickety tables, a small, dusty stage for impromptu karaoke, and a well-used pool table where locals gathered, their laughter easy and loud. I was nursing a perfectly chilled local craft beer, lost in the low hum of conversation and the rhythmic clack of pool balls, when she walked in. The entire room seemed to subtly shift, as if the very light recognized her presence. Her name was Lyanna. She was a radiant force, effortlessly captivating. 20 years my junior, a fact my mind registered then immediately dismissed. Her eyes held an ancient wisdom, a quiet strength, a knowing far beyond her years, instantly, pulling me into her orbit. Her laugh, pure music. like delicate wind chimes dancing in the gentlest breeze. Her smile, a magical warmth, capable of melting even Miami's oppressive heat. We started talking. Not hesitant, awkward small talk, but easy, natural conversation. It drifted from the weather to the bar, then rapidly deeper into our lives. She worked there, she explained, sending every spare dollar back home to her family in a small, rural province in the Philippines. A common narrative I knew among so many Filipinos working abroad or in big cities. The relentless burden of remittances, the sacrifice for loved ones. But with Lyanna, it was different. She wasn't just a pretty face behind the bar. She was sharp, quick-witted, genuinely funny, and crucially, she seemed truly, deeply curious about my life, my journey, my escape from Chicago. We played a few games of pool, the comfortable click-clack of the balls, a soothing rhythm to our easy, flowing conversation. Hours vanished, swallowed by the Miami night. That night, for the first time in an impossibly long time, I didn't feel so utterly, crushingly lonely. The vibrant energy of Miami, its promise of endless possibilities, felt suddenly tangible. And when I looked into Lyanna's warm, inviting eyes, I started to imagine a future I hadn't even dared to dream about before she walked into that unassuming bar. It felt like destiny, finally aligning. Lyanna moved into my spacious, comfortable rented apartment in a quiet, leafy Miami neighborhood within mere weeks. The speed was alarming, I admit. My friends back in Chicago would have certainly raised eyebrows, voiced concerns, maybe even staged an intervention. But in that intoxicating moment, it didn't feel fast at all. It felt absolutely, undeniably right. Like the final, perfect piece of a puzzle I hadn't even known I was solving. The persistent loneliness that had been my constant nagging companion, for so long that quiet ache burrowed deep in my soul, simply vanished. It was instantly replaced by a profound, pervasive warmth that permeated every corner of my home, seeping into the very fabric of my days. She filled the previously silent rooms with her soft, melodic voice, her gentle laughter, her comforting, constant presence. We'd spend hours talking, often late into the night, sharing our most intimate stories, our past scars, our deepest hopes, our most cherished dreams. I learned every intricate detail about her family, her aging parents, her younger brothers, and sisters, and her own 2 young children, all utterly reliant on her remittances. I learned about their humble village, nestled precariously amidst rolling hills in the remote Philippines, and the constant, grinding struggle her family faced daily just to put food on the table, to simply survive. And I truly understood that immense, crushing burden. I genuinely did. It twisted my gut, pulling at every ounce of my empathy. My understanding, fueled by burgeoning love, quickly led to immediate, decisive action. Lyanna had been diligently sending approximately 15,000 Philippine pesos a month, roughly $300 at the fluctuating exchange rate, to her family from her meager earnings at the bar. With her living with me, continuing that work was impossible. So without a second thought, without a moment's hesitation, I immediately agreed to cover that crucial monthly amount for her. And for her own personal needs, for her daily comforts and a sense of independence, I generously gave her an additional 7,000 pesos a month, around 140. Looking back now, through the bitter, razor-sharp clarity of hindsight, some might justifiably say it was recklessly too much, recklessly too soon, an act of blind, overgenerous folly. But at the time, caught in the intoxicating, blinding glow of new love, I just saw it as supporting the incredible woman I was rapidly, helplessly falling deeply in love with. It was helping her carry the immense, grinding burden of her family's sheer survival. It felt like such a small, insignificant price to pay for the sheer joy, the unwavering companionship, and the profound emotional connection she brought into my newly brightened life. My days, which had once been a solitary pursuit of exploration, a quiet, solitary figure wandering the sun-baked Miami streets, now revolved entirely around us. We still ventured out, of course, exploring new fusion restaurants in Wynwood, strolling through the lush botanical gardens, or catching a thrilling heat game. But the quiet, intimate moments at home, snuggled on the couch watching movies, cooking simple, delicious meals together, or just reading side by side in comfortable silence. Those became my absolute favorite, most cherished moments. Lyanna possessed an uncanny, almost magical way of infusing even the most mundane daily tasks with her unique charm, elevating them, making them feel special. Her humor was quick, often dry, and delightfully unexpected, consistently catching me, off guard with its sharp wit, and leaving me in stitches laughing until my sides ached. She seemed to genuinely value our relationship, to truly value me, and I wholeheartedly believed she did. She seemed to cherish, with every fiber of her being, what we were so rapidly building together, brick by emotional brick, a sturdy foundation of shared dreams, mutual affection, and unbreakable trust. A year melted into another, then another, a dizzying whirlwind filled with constant laughter, profound comfort, and a deepening, undeniable sense of belonging. We hadn't left the sprawling, vibrant urban paradise of Miami, but our personal world felt vast, boundless, limitless. One quiet, utterly perfect evening, on a secluded, pristine stretch of beach in the tranquil, idyllic Florida Keys, a place my expat friends had raved about for its unspoiled natural beauty and calm, crystalline waters, I found myself on one knee. The Florida sunset painted the vast sky in incredible fiery hues of orange, purple, and molten gold, mirroring the vibrant, almost overwhelming emotions swirling within my chest. I held out a simple, elegant silver ring, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird's wings. "Lyanna," I said, my voice thick with emotion, trembling slightly despite my desperate efforts to control it. "I love you more than words can express. Will you do me the immense honor of marrying me?" Her eyes, usually so composed and calm, welled up with unshed tears, reflecting the last dying rays of the setting sun. A soft, breathless "yes" was all I needed to hear. That night, under a dazzling, star-studded blanket of darkness, our two hearts seemed to beat as one, a beautiful, harmonious, utterly perfect song. It felt like my life was finally gloriously complete. The engagement triggered a new, almost frantic urgency in Lyanna's demeanor. She immediately began talking in earnest about Filipino traditions, about her family, and the intricate customary rituals surrounding marriage in her culture. I was already somewhat aware of the Filipino pamamanikan, the formal asking of the bride's hand from her parents, and the concept of sincilio, which is a symbolic dowry traditionally given by the groom to the bride's family. My expat friends, many of whom had married Filipinas, had often warned me about excessive demands, especially if the woman already had children from a past marriage or had been married before. Lyanna had two young children, a boy and a girl, who were being raised by her parents in her distant village back in the Philippines. I told her clearly and calmly that I wasn't comfortable paying a large, substantial sum for sincilio, as I understood its purpose was symbolic. However, I assured her I'd be happy to pay for the entire wedding ceremony itself, providing a beautiful and memorable day for everyone. She agreed, seemingly relieved, and for a fleeting moment I thought we were on the same page. But then, a quiet, almost imperceptible realization slowly dawned on me, like a faint, unsettling light appearing through a dense fog. In all our time together, over a year of living side by side, sharing every moment, Lyanna hadn't once, not a single time, visited her children or her parents in the Philippines. It struck me as profoundly odd, almost suspicious, given how often she spoke of them with such apparent affection. When I gently asked her why, her answer was always the same, delivered with a sweet, earnest expression, her eyes soft with what seemed like deep love. She just wanted to spend all her time with me because she loved me so much. Our time together was precious. It sounded incredibly sweet, loving, selfless, but a tiny, jarring, off-key note struck me deep down. It was so faint, so easy to dismiss amidst the overwhelming symphony of our new love, that I almost completely ignored it. Almost. The very next day, driven by Lyanna's insistent urgency that we make the Pamamanhican visit quickly, we were on a plane, then a cramped, rattling bus, then an even more cramped, rickety jeepney, grinding our way to her remote village deep in the mountains of the Philippines. I'd never been to such a truly underdeveloped, isolated place in my life. The journey itself was long, utterly exhausting and incredibly dusty, a stark, jarring contrast to the clean, polished streets of Miami. The village itself was even more basic and primitive than I had possibly imagined. Small, rickety wooden houses, unpaved paths choked with dust, stray chickens and dogs roaming freely, and a palpable sense of grinding poverty that hung heavy in the air, a constant, unspoken burden. It was a shocking, deeply uncomfortable and almost nauseating contrast to the comfortable, privileged life we lived in Florida, and for the very first time, I truly grasped the immense, almost unbridgeable chasm between our two worlds. I tried desperately to hide my discomfort, to appear respectful and open-minded, nodding and smiling, but inside, a quiet, insistent worry started to grow, like a persistent, insidious weed pushing through cracks in a sidewalk. After the polite, formal greetings, the customary mano, a respectful hand-kissing gesture towards elders, and stiff, awkward, polite conversation with her parents and various relatives who had gathered, observing me with a disconcerting intensity, the true, blunt purpose of our visit quickly became chillingly clear. Her parents, speaking rapidly and urgently in their local dialect, through Lyanna's surprisingly eager and smooth translation, demanded cincillo, not a small, token, symbolic amount, as I had hoped and understood. They wanted an astonishing 300,000 Philippine pesos, approximately $6,000 USD at the time. My jaw literally dropped, my mouth suddenly dry. I understood enough basic Tagalog to confirm the numerical figure they had uttered, their voices insistent. Lyanna looked apologetic, feigning surprise, claiming she hadn't expected this much, that her parents were being unreasonable, greedy. I reminded her firmly but calmly, looking directly into her eyes, that she had children, that she had been married before. Crucial factors my friends had explicitly told me would mitigate, even negate, the cincillo demand. A heated, rapid fire, back and forth ensued between Lyanna and her parents, all in their dialect, with Lyanna acting as the increasingly strained, almost desperate mediator, her voice a bit too eager, a bit too high-pitched, too insistent. Eventually, after what felt like an agonizing eternity of uncomfortable haggling and unrelenting pressure, we begrudgingly, resentfully settled on 150,000 pesos, around $3,000 USD. I was absolutely furious, seething internally, my fists clenched, but I was utterly surrounded by her entire family, feeling deeply uncomfortable, completely outnumbered and pressured beyond belief. So with a bitter taste in my mouth, I reluctantly, resentfully agreed. The money was counted out, handed over to her father, and the wedding ceremony proceeded with the entire village attending, a dizzying blur of unfamiliar customs and forced, brittle smiles. Later during the reception, amidst the celebratory noise, I distinctly saw Lyanna quietly, almost furtively, hand the small envelopes of cash we received from well-wishers to her parents, slipping it into her mother's hands when she thought I wasn't watching. What could I do about that in that exact moment? Nothing. The first real, undeniable crack in our beautiful, harmonious melody had appeared, raw and exposed, and I felt a chilling sense of dread, a premonition of things to come, returning to the familiar, comforting hum of Miami after that jarring, unsettling village visit felt like escaping from a suffocating, uncomfortable embrace. I gulped down the fresh, salty air, immense relief washing over me. But a persistent, nagging doubt lingered in my mind, a tiny buzzing fly I couldn't swat away. Had I truly, irrevocably done the right thing? The rushed marriage, the unexpected, exorbitant dowry, it all felt forced, manipulative, almost like a carefully orchestrated play. I tried desperately to push these uneasy thoughts away, to bury them deep, to focus solely on the pleasant, sun-drenched life we were building together in Florida. But then, barely a month later, the true torment began. It was a relentless, insidious drip. I woke up one morning to the hushed, then increasingly agitated sounds of Lyanna on the phone. She was speaking rapidly, urgently in her dialect, her voice growing louder, more distressed, almost pleading. She was talking to her mother. When she finally hung up, her face was drawn, her eyes wide with a desperate, pleading look. "My mother needs money," she whispered, her voice barely audible, tinged with urgency and a hint of desperation. For fertilizer, for the farm. There was a bad harvest, the crops failed. She asked for 10,000 pesos, about 200. On top of the 15,000 pesos I already sent monthly for their basic support, and the 7,000 pesos for her personal needs, it felt like a significant, unexpected extra burden. She promised it was a one-time thing, a dire emergency that couldn't wait, a matter of life or death for their crops. "It's my mother asking, not me," she pleaded, her voice a delicate blend of desperation and vulnerability. What choice did I have faced with her tearful plea? I melted. I gave in, but I told her very clearly, looking directly into her eyes, that this had to be the absolute last time. I truly believed in my naive, loving heart that she was on my side, caught in a difficult, impossible position between her family's desperate needs and my generous support. I wanted to believe it, but it wasn't the last time. It was never, ever the last time. The cycle had begun. 2 months later, there was another urgent request. This time, their old dilapidated hand tractor, essential for their small farm, had broken down completely, needing 15,000 pesos, around 300, for what she claimed were immediate, crucial repairs. "What would you do if I wasn't here?" asked, a sharp edge of frustration beginning to creep into my voice, betraying my rapidly growing annoyance. She just looked at me helplessly, offering no real answer, just a soft, resigned sigh, an air of utter defeat. Again I gave in, feeling a tightening knot of resentment in my stomach. Then came a relentless, escalating parade of new emergencies and desperate pleas. Each one a new, inventive crisis. Money for motorcycle repairs, a sudden, truly unexpected hospital bill for a distant, unnamed relative's mysterious illness, a crucial roof repair after a minor but supposedly devastating typhoon, an urgent payment for essential seeds for a new planting season, a sudden, unavoidable tuition fee for a niece's schooling. Each time, a new, unforeseen crisis, a new tearful, a new chunk out of my hard-earned savings. Over the first 3 years of our marriage, I painstakingly estimated I had sent an extra 350,000 pesos, around $7,000 USD, to her family beyond our initial agreed-upon monthly support. That nearly worked out to an additional 10,000 pesos a month, every single month, on top of the money I already sent. It was a substantial, debilitating sum, a constant hemorrhage of my finances. When I confronted Lyanna about this escalating financial drain, this bottomless pit, she was always invariably apologetic, expressing profound sorrow, her eyes wide with what seemed like genuine regret, always claiming she didn't know how to stop them, how to tell her family no, how to refuse their desperate pleas. She insisted she couldn't risk falling out with her family, as they were her lifeline, caring for her children and representing her only true roots, her only security. I even desperately suggested bringing her children to live with us in our spacious Miami apartment, thinking it would solve the problem of their care and finally staunch the flow of demands. But she adamantly insisted they were better off, safer, and happier in the village, surrounded by their relatives and their traditional way of life. The doubts, which were once faint whispers, were now growing louder, more insistent, like persistent, clashing, discordant notes in what was once a beautiful, harmonious song. The amount of money I had been handing over wasn't entirely crippling me, not yet. My pension and investments were robust enough to absorb the drain for a while. I could technically afford it, but just barely. But the principle of it, the constant erosion of our initial sacred agreement, gnawed at me like a persistent, cancerous growth. The initial monthly allowance I gave was already incredibly generous, I knew it. Her family was effectively getting more money than most people in their impoverished village earned through backbreaking hard labor, simply for existing, for being her family. And still, the requests never stopped, never waned, never diminished. For a seemingly blissful year, after I had put my foot down firmly after a particularly large request, the direct demands from the village did indeed cease. I genuinely thought the problem was finally solved, that my firmness had worked, that I had finally broken the cycle. I thanked Lyanna, genuinely relieved, believing she had made them understand. how incredibly, painfully wrong I was. Then came the biggest, most audacious, most outrageous demand yet, striking when I least expected it, when my guard was down. Lyanna told me that a severe tropical storm, a supposed super typhoon, had violently ripped the entire roof off their house, leaving it exposed uninhabitable, a total ruin. She claimed they desperately needed an astonishing 120,000 pesos, around $2,400 USD, for urgent repairs, a sum that seemed unreal for a simple village dwelling. Absolute emergency, she insisted, her voice trembling with what seemed like genuine distress, her eyes wide with tears. My heart sank, a cold, heavy stone in my chest. This was a huge, almost unimaginable sum for a simple village roof. I refused firmly, my resolve hardening like concrete. I am not giving them that. Much money, I told her, my voice rising, my patience worn thin. That's a fortune. It's beyond ridiculous. She was her usual apologetic self, full of remorse and sympathy, but there was a new, subtle sharpness to her voice, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place, a hint of cold steel I hadn't seen before. Despite my strong objections, my inner self screaming no, I reluctantly gave in, again my will weakening under her relentless pressure, but I declared emphatically for the 100th time that this was the absolute last time. Lyanna told her family, she said, and they understood this finality, this ultimate gesture. To prevent any future emergencies, she even suggested a seemingly clever, logical solution. We could simply increase the regular monthly money to a fixed 20,000 pesos, around $400 USD, so they could consistently save a portion for any unforeseen circumstances, and I wouldn't be bothered by large unexpected requests again. She framed it as a way to control the flow, to bring predictability. Even though I didn't want to, my inner voice screaming caution, I agreed. The larger fixed monthly payout made the direct, desperate requests stop for a few years, offering a false sense of peace. But I was still handing over more money than I wanted to every single month, simply putting up with it, because I truly believed the big, jarring, devastating requests would not come again. It was a dangerously false peace. Even with the constant, unsettling financial drain, the quiet bleeding of my bank account, life in our comfortable Miami home was, for the most part, good. I loved Lyanna. I truly did. I believed we were living a dream, building a wonderful, fulfilling future together under the relentless Florida sunshine. But every now and then, the thought of all that money, the constant outflow, the quiet erosion of my savings, would hit me like a cold, sudden wave. It was a dull, persistent ache that could instantly ruin my entire day, often seeping into my thoughts and souring my entire week. The money requests, after a few years of deceptive quiet, resumed their relentless, insidious rhythm, slowly tightening their grip. Then, a new development. One of her children, her eldest son, was finally old enough for university. Lyanna approached, me, her face earnest and hopeful, asking for 100,000 pesos, around $2,000 USD, for his initial tuition and living expenses. This, I reasoned, was for a good cause, an investment in education, a chance for a better future, a breaking of the cycle. I agreed to pay, but I made it explicitly clear that I would also be expected to pay for her other child's university education when it was their turn, setting a precedent. That, as it turned out, was the last direct lump sum payment I ever made to Lyanna or her family. For a good while after that, the direct requests did indeed stop. I felt like I was giving them more than enough, perhaps even being taken advantage of, but I managed to rationalize it as doing my part for her family. Yet Lyanna's gentle, apologetic way, her seemingly unwavering sympathy for my burden, and her seemingly genuine regret always made me believe she was truly on my side, that she was just as caught in the crossfire of her family's endless needs as I was. It was her acting, her persuasive behavior, her subtle techniques that had always somehow effortlessly coaxed the money out of me in the first place. Then, in late 2023, almost exactly 15 years into our marriage, Lyanna came to me with another request. Her voice was hushed, barely a whisper, her eyes wide with what looked like profound concern, fear even. Her mother and father, she explained, desperately needed a new house. The old one, she said, was in a truly sorry state of affairs, barely standing after years of typhoons and neglect, a health hazard. It wasn't going to be a grand mansion, just a simple, sturdy new home, essential for their survival. The cost, she stated, would be 500,000 Philippine pesos, a staggering $10,000 USD. Her parents, she claimed, had miraculously managed to save a meager 50,000 pesos on their own, a testament to their efforts, and she was asking if I could, in my boundless generosity, provide the remaining enormous 450,000 pesos, about $9,000 USD, to help them build this absolutely essential new home. Just when I thought everything was finally okay, that the constant stream of demands had dried up, that I wouldn't be asked for such sums again, here I was, being asked to hand over the largest amount of money I had ever been requested for in my entire life. My blood ran cold, a wave of disbelief, then blinding rage washing over me. "No," I said, my voice firm, unwavering, a newfound steel in my tone that even surprised me. "Absolutely not. We've been through this so many times, Lyanna. I'm already giving them more money than I should be. I'm giving you extra money as well. I will not hand over any more money. Ever again." Lyanna looked at me with an expression I had never ever seen before. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't apology. It was a strange mix of disbelief, then a flash of almost contempt, as if I wasn't serious, as if I were just trying to play a game or bluff her. The very next day she approached me again, her voice calm, almost casual, as if my vehement refusal hadn't even happened. "Have you had time to think about it?" she asked, her eyes searching mine intently. "When can we send the money for my family? They are waiting." "Lyanna," I said, my patience completely exhausted, my voice low and firm, barely controlled, "I told you yesterday. No, there is no chance. There is absolutely no chance I am going to give your family 450,000 pesos. Do you understand? The thing is, if they had asked for 100,000, I would have probably, with great reluctance and a heavy sigh, given it to them. But the sheer audacity, the blatant entitlement, the fact that they asked for such a large amount with absolutely no justification as far as I could see after all I'd already given, I think that's what finally broke me. That's what brought everything crashing to a head. When she finally understood that I was truly, irrevocably not going to give them the money, her face transformed. It was a chilling sight. A mask slipped, violently, revealing a harsh, unfamiliar, a woman beneath. The gentle, apologetic Lyanna vanished, replaced by a hardened, almost furious stranger. "What can I tell my family?" she hissed, her voice sharp with anger and desperate panic. "Just tell them no," I shot back, my own voice rising in frustration, no longer caring about hiding my anger. "It's too much money. They get money every month from me already. Tell them no." What she said next chilled me to the bone, sending icy shivers down my spine, confirming my darkest fears. "You love me. You want to have problem with my family." I just stared at her, stunned, my mind reeling, struggling to comprehend. All this time, for 15 long, dedicated years, I had believed Lyanna was fundamentally on my side, that she was just as caught in the crossfire as I was, a helpless victim of her family's relentless, insatiable demands. But it turns out she wasn't at all. She was an active, willing participant in the deception. I told her again, firmly, my voice now cold, that they weren't getting the money, that she needed to tell them that, but she was utterly adamant. She said she couldn't. Tell her family that she needed to send the money to them because she had already promised, had already told them they could have it. This was the first time I had truly, definitively put my foot down and told her an absolute no. And she didn't react in the way I was expecting, not with quiet resignation or sadness. She was insistent, almost demanding, that we needed to send it to them. This was a position I'd never ever been in before. I truly didn't know what to do. I could give them the money, knowing full well that an even larger, more brazen request would undoubtedly come again in the future, dragging me deeper into this financial abyss, a never-ending cycle. Or I could say no and face the frightening, unpredictable consequences. That evening, I talked to a trusted expat friend of mine, a seasoned veteran of life abroad, who had unfortunately seen similar situations unfold countless times. He listened patiently, his face grim, and then looked me in the eye. "I bet you anything, Paul," he said, his voice grave. "She's in on it. She's getting a significant share of all the money that you've been giving to her family, or maybe even all of it." I didn't want to believe that. How could I believe that? I'd been with her for nearly 15 years at this point. How could I have been so utterly blind, so completely fooled? But that's when I started to think, really think, to let the insidious possibility creep into my mind, that perhaps what he was saying was terrifyingly true. When I got back to the condo, Lyanna was there waiting, her face radiating a palpable sense of scorn and indignation, an almost arrogant expectation of immediate surrender. That look, that cold, entitled gaze, solidified my friend's words. She was expecting me to hand over this immense sum of money without question, without a fight. If so, she was sadly, fatally mistaken. I looked at her again, my voice clear and steady, hardened with resolve, devoid of any lingering emotion. "You're not getting it. Not a single peso." What she said after that, her immediate, spiteful reaction, only made things worse for her, digging her own hole deeper, revealing her true nature. "Okay, I go back to work then," she stated, her voice flat, devoid of warmth, a chilling finality. I'm not happy with what I said to her immediately after this. It was a bit harsh, a cutting remark born of deep, raw hurt and anger, but I laughed, a bitter, hollow, almost hysterical sound, and said, "You're 45 years old, Lyanna. What chance have you got now? What are you going to do?" She didn't like that. Her face contorted with fury. "I have a big problem with my family now," she cried, her voice rising in a desperate wail. "I already told them you will send it, but now I can't, and I don't know what to do." "Okay then," I said, a dangerous calm settling over me, a final plan forming in my head, a desperate gambit to force her hand. "Let's go and visit your family. We can sit down and talk about it properly with everyone, face to face. Let's clear the air." She quickly, almost violently, brushed that idea off, her eyes darting away, her body language screaming rejection. That desperate, immediate refusal was a clear, undeniable sign. My suspicion solidified into certainty. I was thinking of an idea, a final way that I could confirm if what my friend was saying was truly accurate, how I could expose her. And then it hit me. I told her that because it was such a huge amount of money, a sum that would require legal documentation, I would need a lawyer, my lawyer, to speak to her family first, just to make absolutely sure that's where the money was genuinely going, that it was truly for the house construction, and to draw up an agreement. If they agreed that the money was solely for the house, then I'd give it to them. Lyanna looked at me, her eyes wide with a sudden, palpable, panicked fear. Her composure fractured completely. "You know, trust me. I'm not happy to do like that. I just want to send the money. No lawyer. My family no understand lawyer. They will be angry." She was digging herself into such a deep, inescapable hole, and I just started to understand what all this was truly about, the full extent of the scam. She was just after the money. The money was the only thing that mattered, the sole driving force. What's wrong with getting a lawyer to call your family just to confirm things? It's a standard procedure for large sums, I pressed, my voice calm but firm, utterly unwavering. "My family no understand this," she stammered again, avoiding my gaze, her excuse flimsy, pathetic. "They don't understand lawyers. They will be angry." "Okay, Lyanna," I said, the finality ringing in my voice, cold and sharp, a death knell to our marriage. "That's the absolute last of it. I'm not handing over the money. You're not getting it, and your family is not getting it. And, if you're not careful, I'll stop sending them any money at all, including the monthly support that keeps them afloat." Lyanna stood there for a long moment, her face a mask of cold fury, her eyes blazing with hatred. Then she turned sharply and stormed out of the condo. I didn't try to stop her. I didn't chase her. I wanted to see how long she would last, how long she would hold out against her empty promises to her family. She didn't answer when I tried to call her. I was getting sick and tired of this manipulative behavior, sick and tired of being played for a fool. She had tricked me for years, expertly making me believe that she didn't like me giving money to her family. that she just had to because of the overwhelming pressure. But it turns out she was probably pocketing most of the money, or even all of it. I had never once watched her physically send money to her family. I hadn't understood the hushed, urgent conversations on her phone. I had known nothing for sure. I had just trusted her blindly, completely, without question, wrapped in the comforting illusion of love. And now she was expecting 450,000 pesos, and she wasn't going to get a single cent. She came back to the condo a few days later, her demeanor completely changed. This time, she was acting utterly sorry, tearful, almost desperate. She clung to me, her voice trembling, insisting she was so sorry that she didn't mean to hurt me or upset me. It was just the immense, unbearable pressure of getting the money for her family, she insisted, her voice breaking. She claimed that she loved me so much, more than anything, that I was her life, and she promised, absolutely swore on everything, that if I just handed over the 350,000 pesos, she'd dropped the amount, a small meaningless victory I barely registered, she would never, ever ask again. This was the final, desperate, pathetic plea. No, I told her again firmly, my voice now devoid of any wavering emotion. My resolve was unshakable, forged in the fires of betrayal. And how quickly did her demeanor change after that? Like a switch had been flipped, the tears vanished instantly, replaced by a tough, determined glint in her eyes, a cold, steely resolve I hadn't seen before. "Okay, I go back working the bar," she declared, her voice cold and flat, a chilling finality. By this time I had truly absolutely had enough, more than enough. "Go right ahead," I said, my voice equally cold, utterly devoid of any feeling, any care, any lingering affection. She packed her things, just a few bags, revealing how little she truly possessed, and left. She tried calling me a few days later, her voice softer, almost pleading, asking if I had changed my mind, saying she wanted to be with me. But she quickly added the caveat, the bitter condition. She couldn't be with me if I couldn't help. Her family, because she needed to make money to help them, it was her duty. I offered one last olive branch, a final test. "You can come back, Lyanna, and don't ask for the money, and we'll be fine. We can start fresh, rebuild." But she was having none of that. Her true priorities at last were laid bare, stark and undeniable. When the truth finally hits you, when you realize the person you spent 15 intense years of your life with, the person you dedicated yourself to, the person you loved, has been systematically, meticulously scamming you out of your hard-earned money, using her own family as an elaborate, cruel excuse. When you finally come to terms with that painful, undeniable truth, and there's no hiding from it, no twisting it away, no rationalizing it, it doesn't hurt so much when she physically leaves. The emotional wound is already deep, festering, a raw, gaping chasm in your soul. But her physical absence almost feels like a strange, painful relief. The only thing left was to secure a divorce. I didn't want to give her any more money than absolutely necessary, not another cent if I could help it. Thankfully, I didn't own anything significant in Florida under my name that she could claim in a divorce settlement, so that was a huge mitigating positive. All my substantial investments, my robust pension and my primary source of income were securely back in my home country, carefully managed, completely inaccessible to her. She had no idea what those assets were, or where they were, or any possibility of being able to find them. I immediately got a lawyer involved. He was excellent, pragmatic, and understanding, guiding me through the painful process. He liaised with my wife, or rather, with her increasingly frantic demands, and after much back and forth, many frustrating, agonizing negotiations, we finally came to an agreement. She even tried, through her own lawyer, to convince mine to tell me to give her that 350,000 pesos, claiming it was owed to her, that it was her right. But that wasn't happening. That ship had sailed, sunk and burned. After prolonged, bitter negotiations filled with accusations and counter-accusations, it was finally agreed that I would give her 70,000 pesos, roughly $400 USD, a final, painful settlement, a small price for my freedom, and we got the divorce. I was finally, utterly, completely free of her. 15 long, deceptive years I stayed with her, and for 15 long, torturous years, she lied and cheated me out of my money, slowly, methodically, piece by piece. I was actually happy, oddly, enough with a bitter, cynical twist, that she did finally ask for such an astronomically large amount at the very end, because it was the one thing that finally broke the spell, that forced my hand. It made me put my foot down and say a definitive, absolute final no. If she had simply continued asking for smaller amounts, for a never-ending string of fabricated emergencies, I might still be in that suffocating, soul-crushing position, constantly receiving random, insidious requests for money at different points in time, never truly free, never truly escaping her grasp. I found out later, through another connection, a mutual acquaintance who felt sorry for me, the sad, ugly truth behind it all. There were indeed significant gambling issues within her family, a deep-seated generational problem that had consumed their finances, leaving them perpetually indebted. Lyanna herself, it turned out, also liked to gamble, a dangerous addiction. She had expertly hidden from me throughout our entire relationship. Money was being borrowed against the family's meager, ancestral land, mortgaged to loan sharks, and that's why they needed the money so desperately, not for repairs or fertilizer or education, but to pay back mounting, often usurious debts from their relentless gambling losses. They were trapped in a vicious cycle, and that, mercifully, was the last I heard of it, the final chilling revelation. You can live with someone for 15 intense, dedicated years, share your deepest thoughts, your most intimate dreams, your most vulnerable moments, and dedicate a significant portion of your life, your very being, to them, and still not truly fundamentally know who they are. It's a terrifying, sobering, soul-crashing realization. I'm 65 now, too old, too weary, and far too cautious to get into another serious relationship with anyone. I have my steady income. I still enjoy a comfortable, peaceful lifestyle. In Miami, surrounded by the sun and the sea, and I cherish the simple freedoms I have found once more. But that marriage, apart from the constant infuriating money requests and the ultimate betrayal, did have its fun times, its moments of genuine happiness, moments I still cling to. However, it also taught me a profound, painful, unforgettable lesson. Just how far some people will go, how elaborate their deceptions can be, how expertly they can weave a web of lies to try and extract money from you. So I'd say this to anyone, in any country in the world getting involved with anybody else: just be careful. Be incredibly careful who you trust. Because sometimes, the most beautiful, seemingly perfect song can hide the most painful, discordant, soul-shattering truth.